if it isn't the consequences of my actions. If you had told me like 10 years ago that the series of actions I was going to take in life was going to result in me making a video on the history of bananas for 700 people, I would have thought you were crazy, and I would have wondered what college degree I had gotten to cause that. It was not a college degree, it was simply the fact that I goof around a little bit too much, and you guys are just incredible. But yeah, we hit 700 subscribers. 700 people. A whole warehouse full of people watching my insanity. So, as I promised, here is the history of bananas, I guess, but also really briefly because these things are insane. First, we have to establish that the original version of what we know today as the comedy staple and peanut butter sandwich partner is not what the banana used to be. Our bananas are sweet, long, soft, and most importantly, seedless. We are going to stay away from inappropriate jokes this video. Their basic form, before they evolved like Pokemon into a yellow Metapod wannabe, were long, thin, and absolutely chock full of seeds. So we're going to discuss the first species, because that is where bananas begin. Bananas are what you would call the OG, originating up to 10,000 years ago, and quite possibly being the world's first fruit. Their origin starts in Southeast Asia, including the Malaya Peninsula, Indonesia, the Philippines, and New Guinea. Many varieties of bananas still grow there today. Africans are credited with giving the fruit its name, and the word banana is actually derived from the Arab word for finger. We don't actually really know how the bananas got from being in Southeast Asia to being on plantations, because during my research I saw several different stories about how they were domesticated, and none of them support the other. So, Banana Link said that they started to be internationally traded at the end of the 14th century, which was the 1300s. humwp.ucsc.edu says bananas were domesticated in the Kuk Valley of New Guinea in 8000 BCE, though it probably didn't spread from there. They say that a wave of Islam actually helped spread bananas to places in South Asia and the Middle East, and that in the 1200s, Japan received bananas, though Portuguese sailors wouldn't spread it to the New World until the 15th or 16th century. Also, Alexander the Great was probably spreading bananas, among other things. At some point in time, though, bananas were spread, and they went everywhere. Because why not? Well, you see, the reason why is that banana plants are extremely valuable, and for more than just their fruit. Which, the fruit still stuck at this point in time. Bananas don't grow on trees. The stalks of the plants that they grow on are not made of wood, so they're actually considered herbs, and both the fruit and the stalks were great for different kinds of projects. Japanese cultivators used the fibers from the plants for textiles and kimonos. Australia used them decoratively at first, and then for the fruit. The banana plant's just one of those multi-talented queens, you know? So, the world was created. At some point before Jesus Christ walked the earth, the humble banana popped up and became useful. And then people started taking bananas with them around the world. Most banana plantations were small-scale operations at first, used to create just enough crop for local areas. And as plants do, as the bananas were spread around and cultivated, they began to mutate. Humans shaped the evolution of the fruit by preferring the kind that had less seeds and more fruit content. And by cultivating the kind we liked best, we shaped, the shape of the fruit. So we ended up with what is called the Grow Michael banana, or, as some like to call it, and I cannot emphasize this enough, this is not just a bit that I'm doing, this is what it's actually called, the Big Mike. But Big Mike is not the banana you're used to. No, the bananas you've been eating since the 60s are Cavendish. But despite that, you've probably still tasted a Big Mike. Well, how crab-finated? Well, have you ever eaten a banana-flavored anything? You munch on a Laffy Taffy that says banana flavor and you stare at the wrapper having an existential crisis because who flavored this thing? Is taste dyslexia a thing? Is that what's happening here? Well, fellow confused human, what you're tasting is old Big Mikey himself. The banana flavor that we still cling to today is what the Grow Michael bananas used to taste like back then. It was invented to try and satiate the incredible appetite of the United States. But I am getting ahead of myself, so let's take a step back. Michael. So we started getting better and better banana fruits. Like I said, resulting in Grow Michael. Then we realized that bananas are great for food and money. So the next logical thing happened. Overconsumption and capitalism. Commercial banana production began in the 1800s, and it only ramped up from there. You see, at first, banana plants were used as an intercropping plant. Coffee, cacao, and peppers need indirect and varied sunlight. So by planting them between banana plants, they would receive the varied sunlight because the leaves would shade them. The high yield of nutritious fruit also was used to feed the slave population. Unfortunately, our beloved minion food is quite literally steeped in blood and slave labor. The history of bananas is dark and tragic, and although this video is mostly silly and I am cracking jokes, there were quite literally inexcusable things done in the name of consumption of this fruit. So huge plantations were formed, bananas were grown, they were imported to other parts of the world, and the world suddenly realized they were great. At the 1876 World's Fair in Philadelphia, the banana was introduced to the United States, and we fell in love. Get Hallmark on the phone, because this was love at first sight. Plantations literally couldn't grow bananas fast enough to keep up with the demand. And believe me, they tried. But the United States was insatiable, which is in part why the Big Mike flavor had to be created. It's like that one episode of Garfield where he can't stop eating anything and he just consumes a house, but it's the United States and bananas. Companies like the United Fruit Company, also called the UFC, but not that UFC, Chiquita, Dole, and Del Monte ramped up production of bananas and tightened their control of transportation and labor. Not only did we almost completely wipe bananas off of the face of the earth, there was also unspeakable violence created in the name of production, including the Banana Massacre, which we'll get to in just a second. You know the term Banana Republic? Well, it's more than just a bad fashion brand. It's actually something that the United States participated in making, and they're not good. The UFC, not that one, needed more land for more bananas. So they quite literally, and again, I am not kidding, engineered a coup in Guatemala with the help of the United States. The coup resulted in a 30-year military dictatorship and a civil war in which over 200,000 civilians were killed. Oh, what's that? You thought this military coup was the Banana Massacre? Oh, not a chance. No, that's just a thing we did because we can. No, the massacre is worse. So in 1928, workers in Ciénaga, Colombia, I think that's how you pronounce it, unionized and demanded better working conditions. Working conditions were so bad that in many places they weren't even paid money. They were literally just given papers that say you can maybe buy something at a local store. So the union demanded that they get actual money, they get paid weekly, and they only have a 6-day work week. These are extremely reasonable demands, even in the 1920s. But this threatened the UFC, not that UFC's, profits. So they did what any reasonable employer would do. They used their ties to the CIA to get the US to threaten to invade Colombia if Colombia didn't squash the Union. So what did Colombia do? Well, like any reasonable country would, they opened fire on bystanders and protesters, killing an unknown number of people. The actual reported number varies, but an official dispatch to Washington sent by a US ambassador reported that there were at least 1,000 people killed. So, so the 1920s were bad for bananas, but the 1940s couldn't possibly be any worse, right? We cultivated Big Mike so poorly that we nearly made all bananas extinct. You see, if a fruit is seedless, it doesn't have seeds. And so you can't plant seeds. So how do we get more plants? Well, instead of planting new seeds, which would have a slight variation in genetic composition each time, farmers had to cut and replant stems of the bananas to produce more bananas. This results in clones because there's no genetic variation. So these are bananas with all the same genetic structure. And when something has all the same genetic structure, it will also have the same genetic weakness. And you see, Big Mike here, he had a problem. He had a vulnerability to a soil fungus called Fusarium wilt. Because all bananas were essentially the same clone, they were all susceptible to the TR1 Fusarium wilt, and it infected nearly every banana plantation in the entire world. The pathogen starved the plants of nutrients and water and turned the entire stalk black, like some sort of horror movie scene. So the farmers had to burn all of their crops, Any crop that was affected had to be completely burned, and they had to turn to a different, lesser-loved variety that was resistant to TR1, called the Cavendish. These are the bananas we know and love and minion today. So, all is good now, right? Big Mike can still be special ordered, and nearly 100 years later, we're enjoying our bananas in full force. Well, not quite. Because just as plants evolve, so do fungi. And when we're planting seedless bananas with the same genetic composition, the fungus is going to have an advantage in the evolutionary chain. Banana crops are currently facing the threat of the TR4 virus, the same fungi that defeated Michael, only this time it's bigger, it's better. Is it too much for Mr. Banana? Well, just like Mr. Incredible has the help of Frozone, bananas have a helping hand. Scientists. Like some sort of Resident Evil plot point, we have started to genetically splice bananas to aid in their evolution and stop the TR4 virus from decimating them again. However, I will say if I see a journal entry about trying to splice a silverback gorilla with a banana, I'm not helping to stop that monstrosity. You can get Leon Kennedy on the phone. Now, I don't go ape for bananas. And if you're like me, and you don't like bananas whatsoever, you might wonder, well, why is it so important to save the banana? Like, bananas aren't my mortal enemies or anything, and I understand why it's important that things don't go extinct. But, I mean, would it be that bad? It's just like one of the fruits that we eat. If bananas were once again Thanos snapped, it would actually be devastating worldwide. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that if bananas went extinct, societies would quite literally collapse. You see, bananas are one of the most nutritious of all foods. They don't contain salt, they contain low, easy to digest levels of sugar, and an incredible amount of fiber and nutrients. They are also one of the cheapest sources of nutrition. They are an essential part of income and employment of many countries. Both internationally and individually, bananas are a source of income and food to more than 400 million people in producer countries, and they depend on it for their food security. In fact, it was estimated that in Dominica, which has an extremely fragile economy, up to 60 cents of every single dollar is tied directly to a banana. It's also a good source of nutrition for people who are low income. If bananas went extinct, the world as we know it would change fundamentally. But, like I said, there is hope because scientists are working on a cure or a way to combat the TR4. And that is the extremely brief history of the banana. More than just a source of comedy, bananas are quite literally essential to the fabric of the world as we know it today. If you are interested in this topic, there's way more history about banana and banana flavors. You can watch Bailey Sarian's Dark History episode on the topic. You can watch Gabby Bell's banana flavor video, which I didn't watch while making the script, but I remember it being pretty good. And while I was making the script, Wendigoon uploaded a whole banana conspiracy video. So, slip on a peel, dive headfirst into more banana lore. This is Editor Crab recording a new outro. Thanks for 800 subscribers. That's crazy. That's insane. I can't believe that 800 of you listen to me yap. I am not back and better than ever, unlike my original outro said, but I will try to be more consistent with uploading. Hydrate or dihydrate. Eat a banana maybe, unless you're allergic. I will see you maybe in 2 weeks. Maybe in 2 years. We don't know. Okay, bye.